Nice to see everybody. I am Christy Duncan Tesmer from Chestnut Hill Meeting and serve our community as General Secretary, and will be facilitating this afternoon as we meet people and organizations that we have relationships with. So there will be definitely a few more people joining us. Let's go ahead and settle into some worship. As we do that, let's be aware there are organizations who, like, we're all PYM friends, we're representatives to many other organizations, most of which cover our whole country. And so as we're in worship, let's just sort of hold that awareness of all of those connections and breadth that is here in the room with us. Thank you, friends. So this gathering is new in this form. We have always at sessions invited people who are representatives to Quaker organizations to give a report. But usually the way that it works is that there's a at the beginning of the business session or at some point during various business sessions, one item on the agenda is to have one group report or maybe two. And so there's a few minutes for them to do it, and it gets scattered throughout the week. So organizations share at sessions. This year, what we're doing is all clearly having everybody together. And I'm pretty interested to see how this works out, because it means that we get to see if there are any patterns or, same thing happening, or if everybody talks about something completely different. What an interesting way to see what's happening in the Quaker world overall. The organizations who are here are organizations for whom PYM has a responsibility of identifying representatives to be part of the governance in some way of other organizations. For example, FGC's Central Committee is made up of representatives from other yearly meetings. And so those organizations tell us, we need you to send us X number of people. And this is how they participate. And this is what their term limits are. And so then our nominating council gets to work and identifies people. And the organizations that we do that for are FWCC, Friends World Committee on Consultation, Fcnl, Friends Committee on National Legislation, I couldn't remember what the C was, Friends General Conference, Quaker Earth Care Witness, Friends Peace Teams, also American Friends Service Committee, and New Jersey and Pennsylvania Council of Churches. There are other organizations that there are PYM friends who are in their governance, but that's not because the yearly meeting is asked to identify people to send there, that they draw from us in whatever other way their governance calls for, like the pension committee has to have a certain number of people from PYM on it, but they have their own board, their own rules, their own bylaws, and they identify PYM people to come. So that's not what's represented here. So we are all here. All of those organizations are here. There are two exceptions. One is that the representative to AFSC says hello to everybody and has been attending their meetings throughout the year. But isn't here today, and just wanted to let you know that a large part of what they've been really focusing on is major budget issues, which seem to be resolving, and structure issues, like what is their purpose, how are they structuring themselves to meet those purposes. The other exception is Arch Street Meeting House Preservation Trust, which is an organization that is part of PYM. PYM owns Arch Street Meeting House. PYM created the trust to be a board that manages the building and all the things that happen in the building, to be in relationship with what it is that our yearly meeting does, but to have like that tight singular focus, which also includes raising money. So that organization typically has the executive director report to PYM every other year or so in business meeting. And so Sean Connolly, their executive director, is here today. So let's jump in. Each organization has 10 minutes on the agenda, and we have a tight agenda, and so I'm going to ask you to really help me stick to the 10 minutes. And I have a new app that is a bell. We'll see if I can make it work, because and I'll give you a 2-minute warning and a 1-minute warning. And then we really need to be able to wrap up so that we can move on to the next group, so we get to hear from everybody. So Sean Connolly, Executive Director of Arch Street Meeting House. You are on, friend.
Thank you, Christy, and hello all. It's a pleasure to present to you all today. My first presentation at Sessions ever, so very, very exciting. I'm gonna try to share my screen. Olivia, I cannot. Can you share my presentation for me? But what my presentation is going to cover is just an overview of what Arch Street Meeting House has been up to during the last year or so, which covers a host of varying things. The Preservation Trust, as Christy said, is part of PYM, and we are here to operate the building, do any type of preservation work that needs to be done on the property, and also organize education programs and all public facing programs that relate to Quaker history. So, of course, Arch Street is one of the great historic buildings in the fabric of Old City Philadelphia. So we're really pleased to be able to operate for mainly tourists, actually, and visitors to Philadelphia who might not know much about Philadelphia and the Quaker connection. So we're very glad to fill that void and present to field trips and visitors from all over the country and the world the importance that Quakerism has played in our nation's history. Could you jump to the next slide, Olivia? So what have we been up to in 2020 specifically? These pictures give you a pretty good idea. We've had outdoor programs going on. We've done a lot of planning. We filmed a virtual field trip. We did some important building upgrades in 2020. So we've definitely been using the time wisely. Could you jump to the next slide? Specifically, we were closed for most of 2020. We were open briefly during the summer of last year, and we got a lot done during that time. We hired a new executive director, myself. We finished a major lighting upgrade in the East Room. And then the trust board has done a lot of work as well. We adopted a master space plan, adopted an exhibits area design plan, and a collection management policy. All those really important things that are needed to operate a historic site. Could you jump to the next slide? 2021 has also been a very, very busy year. We've done a lot of work in the building. You can see some updates that we're doing in this top left-hand picture here. We've installed new exhibits, which is the bottom left picture. We've worked on a new field trip program in conjunction with the School District of Philadelphia, which 2 images to the right there, which show that. Could you jump to the next slide, Olivia? So yeah, all these projects have fallen either in fiscal year 2020 to 2021, or we're like beginning them, teeing up all the stuff that needs to be done for fiscal year 2021 to 22. So this year we've done that new field trip program. We actually have updated hours. So right now we're open Wednesday through Sunday, 10 to 4, which is again consistent with other historic sites in Old City. We've had new inside exhibits, which is very exciting. Updated the catering kitchen, both on the 2nd floor and on the 1st floor. And we've done some important repointing on the burial ground wall. Looking forward to 2021. Some of you might be on our e-blast newsletter that goes out monthly, so some of this stuff might sound familiar to you, but we are getting ready for some very important outside exhibits to be installed across the site and on the wall, so people actually know what the building is. That burial ground wall, 9 feet tall, can be slightly intimidating to people, so we're real glad that these outside exhibits can help break the wall and get people onto the property and learn about our history. There'll be a new opportunity with the EITC, which is Education Improvement Tax Credit. That'll be in partnership with hopefully Friends Council on Education and the School District of Philadelphia. And it'll give opportunities to the school district to come on field trips at no cost to them, which is really exciting. And then we'll be doing some major engineering for capital system upgrades that need to occur in the next decade or so. In terms of our funding, we've done a really good year, actually. We ran a successful capital campaign for those outside exhibits. So thank you for those who have donated and supported to that. Tyson Fund, Shoemaker, a major bequest, some major gifts, and of course the monthly meeting have all supported that project. So we're thrilled to have that fully funded. And we hope that you all can stop by Arch Street at some point in the next year to see those new outside exhibits when they're installed. And then we've had some great general fund money as well. The Department of Community and Economic Development, the Historic Commission, the International Coalition of Sites of Conscience, and of course our annual fund, which has all been really helpful in getting our programs up and running, in addition to all the funding and support that we get from PYM itself. And then looking forward to 2021-22, we want to grow that annual fund and seek additional funds from federal, state, and local funding sources for our education and preservation mission, since there's a lot more work to be done. Olivia, could you jump to the next slide? We are open to the public right now, as I mentioned. This is a picture from an event that took place not 2 weeks ago. So we were thrilled to have that. Although we are still requiring masks for the general public when visitors come in. If you rent the site and can provide proof of vaccination for everyone, we're allowing maskless events in that specific instance. But it's great to see the building so alive again and filled with visitors. Could you jump to the next slide? In terms of our visitation, we've had not the best year, obviously. We are normally visited by about 30,000 field trips and tourists throughout any given year. But since we reopened in March, we've seen some steady growth. Really, July has been a great month for us with 9,166 visitors as of Thursday when I put this presentation together. So we're hoping that we get to 20,000 by the end of the year. That would be really nice. And we've had 2,000, almost 2,500 school tour visitors, which is great with the virtual field trip. So we're hoping that by next spring, we'll be ready to offer an in-person field trip again if the school district will partner with us. So fingers crossed for that. And I hope that you all can come to Arch Street at some point in the next year to see all the updates that we've done. It's definitely a new site, old history, but being reinvigorated with all the new exhibits and work that staff has put in. So I'm very appreciative to staff as well. Want to make sure I leave a minute or two for questions though, so no need to keep sharing screen. But does anyone have any questions about the work that Arch Street Meeting House is doing, or the Preservation Trust specifically?
Bill, do you want to go ahead?
Sean, great presentation, thank you. What is a virtual school tour? Can you just give a brief definition of what that is?
Sure, so we got a...
Before you jump in, this is your 2-minute warning.
Great, thank you. Our virtual field trip is a video tour that we filmed in the fall, paired together with a 360-degree picture tour of the site and several lesson plans that accompany that. And then if a school wants to, we will Zoom with them and kind of orchestrate some hands-on activities that they can do from the safety of their house.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, queries? Cool. Well, if nothing else, thank you so much for the opportunity to present. And if anyone wants to stop by, shoot me an email and we'll make it happen so that you can see the site.
Thank you so much. And next up is Joan Broadfield with FWCC. And I'll say, just as you're unmuting, just so you know, and then following that will be Deb with Fcnl. So you're prepared. Joan, go.
Thank you. I believe I am the only Friends World Committee rep here. Hopefully we would have had Jeff, but I think I have what he was going to say, so we'll go with that. So Olivia or TJ, would you be able to start the slideshow? Can you guys hear me? Odd things are happening. I can't figure this out. Okay, cool. So I'm going to ask you guys to be aware of the chat, to give me some chat information. For instance, Friends World Committee for Consultation. Why do you think that is their name? You may have no idea, but put your guess in the chat. All right. Let's see, did anyone put anything in the chat? You're all scared to guess wrong, right? Well, we're called the Section of the Americas, and there was an event over a century ago that was something to do with the name. Well, yeah, it has to do with the fact that it's a consultation rather than a command, or even like, no, we're not the Vatican for Quakers, you know, that sort of thing. Olivia, do you want to go to the next slide? Or TJ, I'm not sure who's doing the slides. So it's an association of Quaker yearly meetings worldwide, including all the branches. And the Philadelphia meeting has a face in this and other organizations. While we call ourselves representatives in some way, like all representatives who are Quaker, we don't represent a particular point of view. And sometimes Quakers get confused by this, so this is why I'm saying it. We bring ourselves and experiences as friends from Philadelphia Yearly Meeting. And so guess what? It says roll call, and I just realized I don't have the names. So that's embarrassing. I got an emergency email, and so I have an excuse. But anyway, we have several of us. Christy, you don't by any chance have the names, do you?
The reps to FWCC?
Yeah, I'll look
I
for
can
them on
pull
my
it up, but
email.
it'll take me a minute.
Oh, thank you. That I'm embarrassed. I know Jeff Keith was planning to be here. He is hopefully going to be approved by you as a rep, but he has been attending Friends World Committee for a long time because he does translations. And Christy Randazzo, who was unable to be with us, sent his regrets. Jack Waltz is on also as a rep, and there's a really cool person whose name I think it's an Aisha name. I don't know what it is, but Christy will tell us. And I haven't met that person yet. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a busy year, as you know, on Zoom, and so it's a little hard when we can't meet in person. So Olivia, next slide. Our mission at Friends World Committee is to answer God's call to universal love. We bring friends of varying traditions and cultural experiences together in worship, communications, and consultation to express our common heritage and our Quaker message to the world. And we work by encouraging fellowship and understanding among all the branches of the Religious Society of Friends, really all of them. We bring friends together in multiple ways to celebrate God in our lives, to gather the Quaker voice, and build networks to address issues of our time, and to unite us within our great diversity. Next slide. So here's a map, sort of. Can you see it? Mine isn't that big because I made it smaller, but you can see all the places we have, and you can see in Africa. Well, you don't see Africa because this is our section. Sorry about that. Yeah, our section is Alaska to Peru, I think it is. Maybe it's Bolivia. Anyway, we have friends in, I can't read my own slide, sorry. But can you read it?
Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, Cuba.
Thank you.
Canada.
Yeah, that's right. And so the next slide, I think the next slide is hers. So the next slide, we're going to hear a brief part of the Quaker Speak video, listening in tongues, being bilingual Quakers. And this has to do not so much with the language we speak in terms of our country or culture, but it has to do with the words that we use to express our faith. Olivia, do you want to do that short part of it? Yeah.
Listening in tongues is our spiritual discipline of listening beyond the words for the message of the Holy Spirit in the words that fallible, ordinary human beings have to use to communicate. And it acknowledges that the words that I use to mean this message may be different than the words you would have used to express the same message. And so our ability to listen for what was really meant is an important practice for people in any spiritual tradition, in any community.
Thank you, Olivia.
I think that it's important.
We could listen to the whole thing, but then we wouldn't go on with a slideshow. So guess what, guys? You can go to Quaker Speak and listen to it all. There's some wonderful videos on that wonderful website. So we had a meeting within our section on March 12th. Actually, I think I read that wrong. That was the whole section from north to south, Alaska to Peru or Bolivia. I forget which one it is. And you can check out those messages from the website to hear what they're about. We thought we would reflect messages, but since we only have me here and I'm terrible at remembering, I think there is something on the next page that says something about that. We also meet in smaller parts of the section, and we met in the fall last year, and I think that's in the next one. So we might go to the next one. Yes. So the Northeast region is our region. It includes friends from Philadelphia Yearly Meeting, New York, New England, and an eastern part of Canadian Yearly Meeting. And Philadelphia Yearly Meeting, interestingly, is the only yearly meeting that is only affiliated with FGC. Others are dually affiliated with FUM. Some of them are having conversations with FUM about some troubling policies of FUM. And it shows one way that, in my opinion, the World Committee gives us a place to learn some of that skill of talking in differences with each other. Our annual gathering as a whole of the Northeast region was in October. And Jeff says a major highlight that I can remember now is that we had musical presentations from 2 congregations of evangelical friends of African immigrants, one from Buffalo and the other from Montreal. And a lot of them spoke languages other than English. I was in a small group discussion with a woman from New Hampshire who is a neighbor of my daughter's, whom I'd not previously met. And Jeff was going to speak, Alaska to Bolivia. Thank you, Jeff. The gathering of the whole section that was in March was from Alaska to Bolivia. And what he was going to share was some of his translation experiences. His partner is deaf, and Jeff himself speaks Latina languages and English. And so he does a lot of translations within Friends World Committee. And he observed that Zoom allowed people from any part of the world, if they have the right sort of hookup. These plenary conferences of the whole section has fellowship and worship together as its business. And these are open to anyone who wants to attend, anyone, even you who are not a rep, and learn more about Friends World Committee.
And you have 1 minute.
Okay, so if you have questions, throw them in the chat. And what might you do in your meeting on October 3rd, 2021 when it is World Quaker Day, that you might bring something about Quakerism to your meeting, and help us all by inviting us to your meeting. We'll visit and talk more about this. There's first day school stuff also available. I should check the chat. Nothing.
Thank you, Joan. And Joan, speaking of the chat, would you put contact information in the chat for if there are any questions that or any follow-up that anyone wants
Absolutely,
to
happy to do that. Yep, I will take.
Excellent.
I will do that. Yep.
And Sean, could you do that for Arch Street as well? And then we'll turn to Deb from Fcnl. And Deb, when you finish up, if you could also put contact information in the chat so that people can.
I think you mean Bill from Fcnl.
I think she means Deb.
Deb from
There are
Friends.
two
Oh,
Debs.
another Deb.
There are two
Sorry.
Debs. Yep, yep.
Good afternoon, friends. Olivia, I'm going to just not use the slideshow. It just because it's such a small venue. I think I'll just speak from the heart here.
Sounds great, Deb.
Oh, okay, thank you. I in some ways, I feel like I'm speaking to a choir of the already convinced here, but I've tried to include some things that may be new and exciting from the Fcnl front. First of all, I'd like to introduce two other representatives from Philadelphia Yearly Meeting 2 Fcnl. Bill Cousins has joined us today, and Joe Laird. So the three of us plus 6 others make up the PYM delegation to Fcnl. Fcnl stands for the Friends Committee on National Legislation. It was started in 1943 as the first faith-based nonpartisan lobby organization on Capitol Hill. So we've just celebrated our 75th anniversary. 3 of the words that we've tried to live by are that Fcnl tries to remain prophetic, persistent, and pragmatic. Our work does not always yield immediate results. So we work on nuclear disarmament. That has not yet happened, but we continue to work. But prophetic, one of the reasons that I'm really pleased to be a part of Fcnl is that it is a Quaker organization that works from Quaker faith and practice, so that our decisions are made out of worship, and it's just so exciting to be in community with other people from around the country working on the same issues. Your 9 representatives to Fcnl are members of the General Committee, which is the governing body of the organization. Other members of the General Committee are representatives from other yearly meetings, representatives from other Quaker organizations, and then a number of at-large members, all of whom identify as Friends or support Friends values. Every other year, we set priorities for the upcoming Congress. So we are currently in the 117th Congress. So our staff works toward the priorities that have been set from the ground up. These priorities are set beginning with monthly meetings. Rather than go through all of the things that have been accomplished in the last year, I'd like to refer you to 2 different documents that are in your advanced document set. One is a report 2 yearly meetings from Fcnl's clerk of the General Committee, Ron Ferguson. And the other is the annual report of the Legislative Policy Collaborative, which is founded in your 9 representatives to Fcnl. One of the, so that what we work to do is lobbying. We work to advocate for policies that are consistent with Friends' beliefs. Lobbying the Quaker way, though, involves building relationships with members of Congress, not just hitting them over the head with facts and figures, so that we rely on storytelling. We rely on telling members of Congress why these issues are of importance to us. Now, lobbying during the pandemic has brought particular challenges, but I would argue also opportunities. It's certainly changed our approach, but overall, it has not really impacted our will to evoke change. That has remained persistent. One of the positives about working through the pandemic is our work has been virtual, so it has widened the participation in advocacy. So for example, at our annual meeting in the past, we've averaged around 500 people. This past year, there were over 700 people from around the country who may not have been able to travel to DC in the past. So allowing people to work together over great distances, I think, has been an opportunity. I also think that Fcnl has been very creative in establishing ways that people can stay in touch and can continue to be effective. One thing I encourage you to look into is called Witness Wednesdays. There's a worship sharing that happens at 5:15 every Wednesday. It's centered around a query that is kind of put up earlier in the day. And I find it particularly moving to worship with people from across the country, in fact, across the world. It's very grounding to do in the middle of the week. Thursdays with Friends is another program where our executive secretary, Diane Randall, has met with real change makers in DC or members of our Fcnl staff to focus on particular issues of importance at this time. Fcnl is working under a forward plan, and this is the 4th year of our forward plan. And I wanted to just share an overview of what some of our goals are. The first, and this is our initial mission, is to continue to change public policy. We lobbied very hard to stop US support for some of the militarism in Yemen, for example, and that has happened. So that strengthening that advocacy is certainly central. We also have tried to strengthen our advocacy network. We have over 80 advocacy teams around the country who are working to lobby members of Congress on the same issue in the same year. That too is very powerful, to have representatives hearing the same message again and again. We've enhanced our media presence. We're all over Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, so that the word of our work is getting out to a larger audience. And finally, an important part of our forward plan is broadening FCNL's relationship with members of the Religious Society of Friends, and that would be all different aspects. So we work with evangelicals, with Friends United Meeting, FGC, and so on.
And this is your 2-minute warning.
Thank you. In addition, FCNL has embarked on an intensive diversity, equity, and inclusion training for staff and for decision makers in the organization. We outreach in DC through our Quaker Welcome Center. And this year will mark the opening of what used to be William Penn House, a Quaker hostel in DC, which will now be known as Friends Place, as a center for education, programming, and advocacy training. I encourage you to go on the FCNL website. I will put it in the chat. Events are there. You can learn to lobby in 30 minutes. You can join in on Thursdays with Friends, for example. Or you could become a monthly meeting contact. So I'll put my information, I'll put FCNL's information in the chat. Are there any questions?
Hey, Deb, thank you so much. That was, all of you are packing a lot of information into this short period. It might be a little more than everybody can hold on to forever, but so like grab the contact information that's being posted in the chats for that purpose as well. But even if it's not all retainable, we all will walk away from this with a sense of like the enormous breadth and depth of what Quaker organizations are doing and our, as a yearly meeting, our relationship to that.
Okay, Christy, someone did ask in the chat how many meetings get emails for action from FCNL. I don't know the answer to that. I know we are in all 50 states. And all of the yearly meetings are represented, but I will find out, Joan, and let you know.
Thank you.
Ed, this is Bill. One thing I would add is within PYM, we would like to have every meeting have an FCNL contact representative. And that probably isn't the case right now, but we're working toward that, so that when there is a call for action, that we have someone in each meeting to contact, to whether it's letter writing or making calls to your representative, you'll have someone at your meeting to be the lead on getting the word out to friends at your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, we're going to move to Pat Finley and Ruth Darlington for Quaker Earth Care Witness. Let me just pause for a second and say the groups that we've heard so far, FWCC, FCNL, oh, nope, we did a change in FGC is coming up at the end. There are, so what I meant to say, and it doesn't actually fit with the order of what we've done, is that nearly every year we're able to hear a report from FWC. When we hear reports at all, it's from FWCC, FCNL, FGC, and AFSC. And then the other ones, the presiding clerks try to find a, they fit in as much as they can each year, and there's sort of a rotation among the others. So QEW, Quaker Earth Care Witness, is a group that we don't often hear from, and am glad that they are able to share today. So Pat and Ruth, you are up, and Deb Wood, you are next from Friends Peace Teams.
All right, so there are two representatives from PYM to QEW, Quaker Earth Care Witness, and that's Ruth and I. That doesn't mean that other people can't participate. We meet twice a year, and anybody is welcome to come to our meetings. So we don't have term limits. so far. QEW sort of expected PYM to impose them, but that hasn't happened. And the other thing is that since Ruth and I became the reps, we've been working very closely with Eco Justice. And so Eco Justice and QEW have sort of sponsored programs together. So their mission statement is that we are called to live in right relationship with all creation, recognizing that the entire world is interconnected and a manifestation of God. So Ruth and I are going to tag team a little bit, and there's a lot of resources available at QEW that we'd like you to know about. And PYM has profited mightily from some of the work of QEW that you may not be aware of. So next slide. Okay. Ruth, do you want to say who QEW is?
Well, other than what's in the slide, I'll just say that I have been attending steering committee meetings for about 4 years now and have been really impressed with the number of people who come from Canada, Mexico, and all parts of North America. And it's a wonderful opportunity because it is a network of people from all of those places to really share the work that we're doing and to support each other in taking spirit-led action to address environmental issues. It's not always easy work, but when we get together, I always feel refreshed and inspired, and I always learn something new.
I've been going to QEW since 2014, and I've come to feel like it's home. When I visit the next meeting, I feel like I've come home, that I have a new community, and I have my meeting community, I have my yearly meeting community, and my QEW community, and it's like having a meta community of communities because I'm connected to all the yearly meetings now. Okay, some of the resources that are available from QEW is they have Earth Care for Children. It's a downloadable curriculum. It's quite extensive, and it's a wonderful resource for first day school. And they have one for adults as well that you can download. They have videos available. There's about 30 pamphlets you can access. There's a wonderful newsletter that we refer to in every one of our Eco Justice newsletters that I think it's extremely well done, and PYM writers have been featured in it several times. They have workshops, mini grants, and a brand new website. With regard to the workshops, there's, whoops, I slipped. Okay, this is their newsletter. I want to go quickly through this. These are their workshops. These are some of their workshops, and they are able to customize workshops that you want to hear about. Like they have environmental justice, regenerative agriculture, testimonies, finding our way forward, financial and economic roots of the climate emergency, and more. But this document is available online, and you can access these sites. There's a mini grants program that has helped in Philadelphia yearly meeting quite a lot. They give up to $500 matching grants to support projects consistent with Quaker values and QEW values. Any Quaker organization, school, or meeting is eligible for grants. And these are the meetings who have been given grants in the last several years. Westchester Friends School, State College, Plymouth Meeting Friends School, Princeton, Old Haverford, Central Philadelphia has been given 2 grants. So that I'm going to stop sharing at this point. So Ruth and I are very involved with Quaker Earth Care Witness, and Quaker Earth Care Witness is very involved with other Quaker organizations such as AFSC, which is a recent strong connection, Fcnl, Fcnl, and FWCC. Have I missed any?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay, so I serve QEW as their treasurer and on their finance committee. And
many grants, right?
I just dropped out of mini grants because it was too much after. So Ruth is doing much more exciting work at QEW. I'm going to leave it to her to explain what she's doing.
Well, there's a reason I'm not the treasurer. I'll tell you that first. But every steering committee member is expected to be on at least one committee and or working group. I serve on the publications committee, which oversees the communications director, coordinator, I'm not sure of her title, Haley Hathaway. And we work with her on both Befriending Creation, which is the quarterly newsletter, and on the publications. And I have to say she's a wonderful asset to Quaker Earth Care Witness. She comes from a really spiritual understanding of the grounding of the work that we do, but she's also just extremely talented in doing that work. One of the most exciting things that's happened in the last year is that we've had a complete overhaul of the QEW website. And I encourage you to go look at that website. One reason was to make it accessible to people on different devices, including iPads and cell phones. But another reason was to open it up and make it friendlier, not just to Quakers, but to people.
Sorry. There are 2 minutes. That was my 2
Okay,
minutes.
to make it accessible to people who aren't Quakers and aren't familiar with our work. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that I clerked the Fcnl working group, and that was recently reformed to strengthen our connection to Fcnl, to support their work, to inform their work, especially to encourage them in their focus on environmental work. And we've been really happy working with their new staff, Clarence Edwards and Mariah Schreiner. And if there are any questions, maybe it's a good time to stop and take those.
I'd like to add that Philadelphia Yearly Meeting has a major influence on some of the work that QEW does, and they have participated in some of our webinars.
And also that by virtue of being on the steering committee, I'm one of the representatives from Quaker Earth Care Witness to the General Committee of Fcnl. And we have at least one other working group member who's on the General Committee and another who represents his yearly meeting at on the General Committee. So there are all sorts of connections that happen, and they really do strengthen us in the work that we're doing.
Thank you, Pat and Ruth. Checking if you could put some, I don't think you've put contact information in the chat yet. And if you could do that, that would be fantastic so people can follow up. And we'll move on to Friends Peace Teams with Deb Wood. And following that, we'll hear from FGC. And I'm jumping in with words and motions now because my little bell sounded too, they were too nice and didn't get heard. So I'll just jump in rudely with my voice and give the warnings.
You could do reactions.
Take it away. People don't necessarily see those when they're involved in presenting. It's been.
There we go. There's the homepage for the Friends Peace Teams. And I've discovered that when I need to see some heartwarming photographs, this is a great place to go. I will also just add that Clarkson Palmer is with us. He is another representative from Friends from yearly meeting to Friends Peace Teams, as is Roy Zatkoff. So there are three of us from yearly meeting, and both Clarkson and Palmer have longer experiences with Friends Peace Teams as representatives than I. So they may have some better institutional memory if you have questions and things. Friends Peace Team's a spirit-led organization, and we work around the world with individuals and organizations that share a similar spirit-led passion for peace-building work. And we work primarily in communities that are or have experienced conflict recently or strife of some sort. Very much ground our work in Quaker sort of testimonies. Right off the bat, you see a great George Fox quotation: "We strive to live in the virtue of that life and power that takes away the occasion of all wars and come into the covenant of peace." And of course, the William Penn, "Let us then try what love will do." Much of Friends Peace Team's work, sort of you can see here, and you can click on any one of these when you go to the website. The website is friendspeaceteams.org. We work closely with the Alternatives to Violence Project and do workshops with AVP, and then variations of the AVP workshops that have generally been developed with the local communities that and places where we work to really meet their needs. So the Cultures of Peace workshop grew out of needs in Indonesian and Southeast Asian communities where Friends Peace Teams had been doing some work. The trauma resiliency workshops and the healing and rebuilding our community workshops are two that grew out of work in Rwanda after the genocide in 1994. And that's where I personally first came across Friends Peace Teams. I was teaching some genocide studies courses, and the opportunity to try and experience and learn what communities were doing who'd been through a genocide to try and break the patterns. The 1994 genocide in Rwanda was sort of a third that they had, and they sort of seemed to come generationally. So, you know, the hope was, after the one in 1994, how can we stop this cycle? And at the root of it, friends in Rwanda, local friends, and really across the region, the communities sort of spilled across national borders there with the refugees, really found that part of what we need to do is to learn to listen to each other better and trust each other better. And when they had people who'd committed the genocide living together with those who had not, how do we reform our community ties? What do we need as individuals? And what do we need as communities? So those are some of the sort of work they do. You can see the sort of different regions. There are three main regions: the African Great Lakes regions, Burundi, Congo, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda. And we work very much with Friends churches there. So in some ways, there's some great themes across the afternoon. You know, Joan Broadfield spoke of FWCC's work across the different communities of Friends. And that's very much what some of the sort of who Friends Peace Teams work with. We also work with a number of non-friends. At our last in-person in-person gathering of the sort of council governing body and coordinators who help in the different regions. We heard from 2 Catholic sisters who also happened to be sisters. They were from Colombia, visiting some Catholic churches they had connections with. And they spoke of the 20+ years work of Friends Peace Teams in Colombia and Central America, and how the model of doing an AVP workshop, and you attend an AVP workshop and you take a buddy from your AVP workshop and then you go and you do an AVP workshop someplace else, had trained over 20,000 people in AVP, spreading listening skills, beginning to transform family dynamics as women attended and women dragged then their husbands there. And so changed family dynamics, community dynamics, where the Civil War had really just decimated some of the sort of more positive, loving, and familial and community relationships just through the trauma experiences. The peace building in Las Americas has also been able to work in prisons in Central America. I'm going to go over to the hamburger because I think this will have it. This sort of stories section gives some of the sort of, you can go in for greater detail on any one of those. One of the other great pieces of Friends Peace Team's work, and you can see it here, is the Power of Goodness story collection. This is great for first day schools, Quaker meetings, Quaker schools, local libraries. The Power of Goodness stories, some of you may remember them as the Lighting Candles in the Dark and the story collections. And they've sort of updated them, gotten children's illustrations with them, and we have them in a number of languages for the communities that we work with. Ukraine and Russia, the Chechnya region is part of the Asia West Pacific branch, where I've been doing some committee work with over the past few years. And they are using those stories to help push against the growing extremism and the sort of inroads by extremist group into youth. And so they're using them in schools, and they're using them with teachers and school psychologists and counselors to help Chechens sort of reconnect with each other and to experience both personal, school, and community that are more peaceful. I did not keep track of what time I started.
You have 1.5 minutes.
1.5 minutes. Well, this is probably a pretty good time. I guess the last thing I'll also mention, I have to get back to the top here. We connected with a group called the Sparklers, which were a group of children's librarians who were Quaker, and they are taking and helping to the Friendly Book Collaborative. Here we go. Peace libraries and curriculums to schools around the world. They're leveling the books so that they're developmentally pushing both English language acquisition as well as getting them in their sort of native languages. So that piece is there. And the one North American based program is used to be the under Boulder Friends meeting, the Towards Right relationship with Native peoples, which is beginning to do some sort of focus and work on the Quaker Indian boarding schools and what a truth commission into that process might be, and the Indian boarding school program more broadly. So Online programs are happening around the world on any of these, and some in-person programs. So check out the events, and I'll put contact information in the chat.
Thank you. And we'll move on to FGC and jumping in for FGC.
Hi, I'm Lynne Pearson. I serve on FGC's Central Committee. I've just about finished 5 years on Central Committee, and it's been a great experience. I'm filling in for someone else who wasn't quite able to be here today. And my computer just did something. I'm putting my information in the chat now. I'm just going to share a little bit from the FGC Impact Report, which was basically for the year 2020 into 2021, and filling in. And I put a link to that report on the website. Some of you may have actually gotten it in the mail. It looks like this, only backwards. And it's a wonderful description of current initiatives of FGC. I also want to note that Faith Josephs is on this call, and she serves FGC as their, I forget her title, but she does all the development work there. And she can fill in for me. And then there are some current and former reps also on the call. So the purpose of Friends General Conference, which is, I think, was 100 years old in the year 2006, something like that, is to nurture the spiritual vitality of friends. And it does that in a variety of ways. Some of you have probably been to FGC's gathering that happens once a year. How many people, just raise your hands, have been to gathering once or more? Great. And that's what some people think FGC is, just the gathering, but the gathering is a lot. It is only one part of what FGC does. Now, last year when the pandemic hit, FGC had to pivot from an in-person gathering in Virginia to an online gathering, and they had 3 months to do it, and they did an awesome job. They had over 1,000 people come last year and this year when it was also virtual. And people came from all over the world, actually. People came who would not have been able to come if it were in person. So this year they had longer to plan that online gathering, and it had even more features to it. And it was also a big success. They experimented, I thought this was interesting, with a pay-as-led model for the virtual gatherings. And this year, it actually met its goal with a little bit of extra fundraising, and met the cost of it with a pay-as-led model. So next year, the plan is that it will be in person back at the Virginia site, which was supposed to be last year. So we'll hope that that can happen. Some of the other programs that FGC offers is the Ministry on Racism. And this offers a lot of programs to undo racism among friends and elsewhere. They do retreats. They have a pre-gathering retreat for Friends of Color. And last year, out of that group came an epistle that was really powerful. And well, you should go read it. It really said what Friends of Color are feeling. They're so tired of explaining stuff to those of us who are white. And they have, during this last year, have really offered a lot of support to Friends of Color in a variety of ways, different retreats, worship sharing. FGC is going to be part of the Quaker Coalition to Uproot Racism with some other Quaker organizations. I just saw something about that in more detail. I think it's with Pendle Hill and some other organization, AFSC maybe. Joan is nodding. There will be, I'm sure, more information about it. There was just an email, or it was on somewhere I saw that. So there are also the Spiritual Deepening Program offers e-retreats, including one called Weaving a Wider Welcome. That's 4 sessions for meetings that want to weave a wider welcome. Not only, how do you get people in the door, but how do you keep them? What do you need to do to connect with people? And it's being offered again this fall, although the dates are not set yet. And there are other e-retreats as well. And a lot of materials are on the website. If you go to the website, which is just fgcquaker.org, take off the news, the impact report part, you can explore and find more about that. There are programs for youth and young adults. They've done clerks training for the high school students and young adults for a long time, but they're now offering some year-round programming. Quaker books. How many here have bought a book from Quaker Books? So Quaker Books has books that nobody else has. I mean, they have everything from books by Quaker murder mystery authors to serious stuff about Quakerism and other things. So that's a good place to look if you're looking for a book on Quakerism. Another program is it's called CIRC, Interfaith Relations Committee. I think the Christian Interfaith Relations Committee, I think is what it's called. And Joan just put Quaker Books in the chat because I think she's involved with that. So, but CIRC is it's an interfaith collaboration. So they've done things like go to the World Council of Churches meetings, which I think Yearly Meeting also has done that. So one of the important things I meant to say during my sharing about the Ministry on Racism is that FGC, as many know, underwent an institutional assessment a few years ago and came out with a report. And there is an implementation committee that's been working to make changes and bring things to light and consult with people all across the country. And one of the results of the institutional assessment was that we adopted a minute, which is a query, basically. So to be looked at, every committee, every decision we make, we ask this question: how does this decision support FGC in its goal to transform into an actively anti-racist faith community? So that means I serve on development committee, when we're making decisions about things in development, we look at it through that lens. And I think, more and more it's becoming like not something that's an afterthought, but it's like up there. And, we're certainly not perfect, but I feel really good about serving an organization that is, as Lisa Graustein, if any of you saw her at Gathering, said, putting, our whole bodies into this work. So I'm going to, somebody put in, Joan put in about the consultation, Quakers Uprooting Racism. That's the collaboration between FGC and AFSC. I'm going to stop there, I think, and see if anybody has any questions. And I certainly hope that if you're interested in getting more involved, I'm happy to talk to you about what being a rep means. We have on the call a former clerk of FGC, Frank Barch, and Jean Marie have been very much involved. And Carter Nash was on the call very early. He also serves as one of Philadelphia's reps And Joan has served in the past. But we could have more on Central Committee from Philadelphia Yearly Meeting. There's room for more people. So talk to us if you're interested.
I want to do a shout out about how serving on the FGC Central Committee helped me learn so much about budgets, about work with friends, and about friends from other yearly meetings. And I really think so many more people should be part of FGC. So, okay, I'm a member of the nominating committee. I would love to hear from you if you would like to serve on FGC.
And Lynn, we're coming up on time. I see Jean Marie has her hand
Yeah,
up.
Jean Marie.
I just want to quickly jump on what Joan just said and add to it that we talk a lot about wanting to bring younger people into governance roles. And one of the things that FGC practices and has practiced for a number of years is making sure that we have a contingent of people under 30, even under 50, but under 30 as part of governance. And that for me is a very important piece of the work that FGC has been doing.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you. And if you think of something later, feel free to be in touch. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of yearly meeting too, but.
Thank you, Lynn, for the report and the fandom. So, friends, I'm wondering what you noticed about patterns or themes in what's been shared through hearing about all of these organizations that we as a yearly meeting have a committed relationship with. Olivia?
I noticed the interconnection between the organizations and the overlap of the work and the people serving and how they just work together and be in relationship in our Quaker communities across the United States and the globe, actually.
Thanks.
They're all action oriented.
Interesting. Deb.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how grateful I am that there are dedicated people doing this important work, so that if each of us follows our passion, we can be assured that other people are taking care of other business.
Carter and then Joan.
Yeah, I had to leave for a while because of therapy. I would like to ask for just maybe 2 or 3 minutes to say something about Pennsylvania Council of Churches. And that's
go ahead. I'm timing you, Carter.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That's just to mention that a lot of our work is collaborative with the other denominations in the state, and that there are the things like the migrant farm workers ministry, where we work with the farm workers, the fruit belt workers, the mushroom workers, and also there's the ministry that is done for people in the state. What a state yeah, right. State forestry.
There's an are you talking about the annual? Yeah.
Where they provide chaplaincy there for people to go, especially up along Route 80. And so there are work that is done together. It's not like we get together and say, I can do this, I can do that. It's what can we do together and work together. And at one point, it seemed to be pretty much a lily white organization, but it has gotten away from that. Both the executive director and the president of the board are people of color now. And there are many other people on the board who are now people of color. So things are changing and improving as far as moving forward. Thank you.
Carter, that's so awesome. Thank you for being here and for jumping in with that. I really appreciate it. And so not only did you just give a like off the cuff report from Pennsylvania Council of Churches, but I think what your theme there of collaboration and the way that the organization works is by collaborating with other people and organizations is another theme that goes through all of the things that we heard today. Another theme that was added into the chat is anti-racism work. It's happening everywhere. We heard about that. Joan.
Yeah, I just want to say the thing I love about these organizations and the ones that I know from my own experience is when we say act, we're not talking about wild-eyed activism. We are talking about spirit, depth, action. And I know from my experience, every single organization I've been part of has had that element of worship and discernment as part of it. So I don't want anyone thinking that it's just about action. It's about spirit-led action.
I heard at one point a couple of people point out how being involved in one organization, specifically FGC, taught them so much about what Quakerism is and their role. I wonder if that I have also had that same experience. I started going to Central Committee when I was in my early 30s, and that's where I learned what clerking is all about. I'm wondering if that is from people who are active in other organizations, if that's also, if that is a theme, that by participating in these other organizations, we learn more about, we have a deeper experience of Quakerism. I think there's a really important interdependence that is from the experience, but also like specifically from the way our organizations are set up. They are set up in order to be interdependent, that the other organizations happen because the yearly meetings can share people, and the things that happen in other organizations feed those people and feed our organizations, and what we're doing in our own yearly meetings and what we're doing in each of those organizations, like really spiritually feed, but also energize and also push and challenge, so that all of us as a people have so many ways of being able to live up to the light that we've been given. Carter,
Just one other quick comment, and that is a lot of these organizations, PYM is or was a founding member of. We helped create these organizations, and so it has been PYM that has helped keep them going, and we help build them and help keep them going in a lot of ways.
Thank you. Bill Cousins.
Another thought I have, all of these organizations depend on volunteers and also depend on our financial support. So I think it's important that when we are thinking about where we put our money and how we express our faith, that all of us have a time budget and have to figure out how we balance doing these things with whatever else we do in our private lives, that we appreciate all the people who are volunteering for these organizations, and that we also, try to dig deep in our own pocketbooks to figure out how we can continue to support them so that they can continue to do the work that they do.
Pat, I see your hand raised.
Okay. One of the things I realized about joining QEW, even though we are very concerned about people flying distances to meetings, we think it's important, incredibly important, to at least meet once a year. People coming together, they learn new perspectives from one another. And not from the meetings and the speakers, but from the spaces in between. That's when we talk to each other and we mention our problems or talk about things that we want to achieve, and we get support and different viewpoints that make it possible for us to go back and do more creative work.
I want to say thank you to everyone here with so much gratitude for the work that friends are doing in other organizations, but also the experience that you have of bringing that, like the way that changes or works within you, and then you come back to Philadelphia Yearly Meeting and how that affects us, and that those of us who are in this room right now who aren't representatives to other organizations but are being shaped right now by hearing about what it is that's happening in other places and by the experience of those who are representatives in other places, and that again, interdependence is part of what helps us be whole and have the skills and experience that we need to be responsive to the divine. So thank you for all of this. I'm very excited to keep hearing about what friends are doing. And if there is anything that friends need in order to continue to do this work, or other questions that you have, please contact anyone whose information is in the chat, or any of us staff who are here. And let's take a moment to settle back into the stillness of worship while holding all of this that we've been given this afternoon.